Okay, so what we're going to do today is a little bit different. I actually pre-translated this, tried to do a couple takes of it, and the video actually aired out the last time. So this is the retake. And when I was trying to go ahead on the PSP, I realized that they tell you that you can visit all three, but you can't really. The only one that you can really visit is Julius at the beginning of the game. It gives you a message like this, and it says that you must go to Julius and have him explain. So we're just going to do that. I was a little disappointed, but it's alright, because you're still staying at the Clover Tower. He's actually working on a clock. That's the hearts of the people in Wonderland. Whenever they die, they leave behind just the clock, and he fixes it as the only clockmaker or, like, watch fixer in Wonderland. Now, at this point in time, she's only able to visit him because the seasons are changing with this April event that occurs when the Joker comes to Clover Country. And with that being the case, she doesn't recall pretty much most of what happened in the last game in Clover Country, but he disappeared and Mary Gowland disappeared because there can only be 12 roll holders at one point in time. They represent the hour hands on a clock, and the mass populace represents the faceless seconds on a clock. And to represent that, they have no faces. But Alice can still tell them apart because she is from our world and sees their individuality. Now, their goal is to keep her in Wonderland, and with that being the case, they don't want her to remember and get upset that they disappeared in the last game. So they play along with it, and this comes into play during this video quite a bit. They have a couple moments of silence right now, ... periods. So at this point in time, they're just exchanging silence in, like, a kind of friendly atmosphere. She comments, though, that the silence continues right here. She's like, but we're not fighting. I mean, it is uncomfortable when you don't speak about anything, usually, but it was not our thing. So, like, this is just what they do. He's like, I feel good. After a ... And she's like, what? He's like, it's a funny feeling that doesn't suit this cold season. Was there anything good that happened? She comments that Julius assembles the watches accurately without resting his hands. And she's like, Julius Monray is a watchmaker. He's literally the only one in Wonderland. So that's why she's thinking about this. She's like, although he has a stiff character, such as you would find in a funeral house, it is a life-giving job that he does in this world. He is a silent, enthusiastic, and serious man. And she's like, nothing special, nothing, because he had asked if something had happened. She's like, I am here, and here is also Julius. This ties into the fact that she knows something happened, but she can't really recall, and they don't really, like, want her to remember, because it might freak her out, and she might end up back in our world, or, like, some other dimension of Wonderland. She's like, that's it. There is nothing special. And she's like, not special. But that isn't... And she trails off. She's like, that? Because she's trying to remember what happened. Because Julius disappeared. He wasn't in the entire second game. And she's like... What is this? She was like, my eyes get hot. Yeah, she's like, gradually my eyes get hot. She's like, what is this? Dot, dot, dot. Dot, dot, dot. Dot, dot, dot. Dot, dot. And then she's like, it's so cold. She's like, it's so cold that my head doesn't want to work properly. She's like, it's indoors, but it's still cold. However, and she had trailed off. It's cold and I can't really think about what is going on right now. She's like, but I know what's important. Julius is smiling. She's like, I have not gone away. And he has not gone away. It is enough to know that we are with each other. And in response to his earlier question, she tells him again, nothing happened, but, and then she trails off. And then really randomly, she's like, I think I like winter, or love winter. And she explains, it's my favorite season. I think I like it very much right now. And she further comments to herself, the towers are made of stone, so the corridors and the stairs are chilled down to the bottom and are particularly cold. It is likely to freeze to your toes just by you moving on them. Or freeze you to your toes just by moving on them. And she's like, but one of the doors in the tower leads to the workroom of Julius, which means this door connects her Clover country dimension to the tower of the watchmaker, the clock tower, from the cart country before the move. And right now, the other seasons for the other territories that aren't in the towers, they basically act as the doors did in the second game, which if she had opened them would take her to either another dimension of Wonderland, possibly Limbo, or back to our world. It just depends. They didn't really go into too much detail, but the light novels kind of talked about it as if she had gone through one. And she's like, that alone is worth going up the cold stairs just to be able to get to the workroom of Julius. She's like, the room is always warm because Julius is withdrawn in there. And if you open the door, warm air will always greet you. He's like, you're a funny girl. Most people hate winter. She asks him, Julius, do you hate winter? Because he said that.
閉じこもるのにはいい季節だと思うがな。仕事がはかどる。
And of course, like Julius, he's like, I think it's a good season because it allows you to stay closed indoors. Work gets done faster and better. She's thinking to herself that if that's the case, you'll be able to love it more and more, Julius, because winter keeps you confined. She thinks to herself, though, ... did you meet up with Ace, because he works under Julius when Julius is in the right country with him? In the last game, he kind of lost his mind, Ace did, the Knight of Hearts, because Julius disappeared. And Ace kind of carries 3 roles: the executioner, assistant prison warden for the Joker, the executioner for Julius, and the Knight of Hearts for the Queen's Castle. And a couple of those roles and roles that go with them kind of drive him insane. So Julius is his reprieve from that, and Julius was gone. So it just built up, and he kept, like, freaking out throughout the second game. He basically goes to collect the hearts that are left behind, and if people try to hide them or break them because they're clocks, once people die, then he kills them and takes their clock also. And Julius just repairs them, and they go back into the world as another faceless, wiped of their memories. So she's asking him if he had met up with Ace recently, and she's like, it might be difficult to come see you. He's already directionally challenged, so this is why she's commenting on this.
ああ、頼みたい仕事があるから使いを出したが。
Julius responds, there was a job I wanted to ask him to do. And he's like, and then it trails off.
奴のことだ。たどり着けるのはいつになることやら。
So he wanted her to go and get him and to take him to and fro, but then he trailed off. Because he's like, it's time for him to come here. She comments on the fact that his face, while sighing, was actually very kind, because they're both used to this. He gets lost just trying to cross the street. He actually enjoys it, and he tries to drag, like, Alice along with these adventures, because he thinks that it's more fun with her along. And he'll also try to do it to Julius, too, if he's around. But he doesn't let them lead him. He gets really angry about it because he actually enjoys being lost. It helps him avoid his roles a little bit longer, like procrastination. But they're both used to how late this makes him when he's needed. And she thinks Julius right here because that's his name. And she's like, Julius again because that's his name. And he's like, She's like, ... nothing. But then she says, about Ace, if I have business, should I go pick him up? Because Julius had trailed off while trying to ask her.
いやいい。来るのを待つ。
He's like, no, it's no good. Just wait for him to come. And this is where she comments on the fact that that's right, like, Ace hates being guided, ... so he wouldn't enjoy it and wouldn't allow it anyway. He'd just steamroll over. She's like, I often agree to guide him, but... And then she's like, well, there's no need to rush anyway. He can come see us anytime.
そうだな。エイプリルシーズン中は特に旅を楽しむだろうから。
And Julius has an issue with being a little jealous around her. So he's starting to make like comments about that because she was talking about traveling and how like Ace can come see them, including her. And he's like, that's right. And during the April season, you'll enjoy traveling especially, ... And it's because she can travel through the seasons to get to different territories that had disappeared during the second game. She actually cuts in and she's like, yes, I want to hear about it. She just directly asks him, what is April season? Like, what is this?
エイプリルシーズンなど特に説明するようなものではないが、一体何が知りたいんだ?
So Julius responds, he's like, April season and etc. is not something that you can really explain. And he's like, ... What exactly do you want to know? Like, what specifically? She actually responds back. She's like, I came to you because I don't know anything and I would want to listen. She's like, I also heard about the absent April season. And she's like, it's because of that name. And she's like, April reminds me of April Fools. Is it that different?
エイプリルフールは知っているのか? お前が元いた世界にもそんな馬鹿げたものがあるんだな。
So Julius comments, do you know about April Fools? And then he's like, there is such a ridiculous thing in the world that you came from too. She's like, I know about April Fools. Aside from whether or not you actually piggyback on the tricks of that day, it's well known.
そうか。お前が元いた世界にもエイプリルフールがあるのか?
And Julius is like, really? Even in the world that you were from, April is there, like April Fool's Day? And she comments to herself, I thought it was foolish before, but now I'm convinced by Julius's words. And she comments that I don't understand the common sense of this world. He doesn't understand the common sense of my world either. Or our world. And she's like, yes, even if you tell a lie, it will be forgiven on that day. And she's like, it's pretty fun.
知っているなら話は早い。今はまさにそういう季節だということだ。
So Julius cuts in and he's like, if you know, then the story is fast to tell. Now, that's exactly this season. And she's like, huh? What do you mean?
わからないか? 嘘の許される季節ということだ。
He's like, you don't know? It's the season when lies are allowed. And she's like, huh? ... And she's like, so why is it winter?
邪魔するぞ、時計屋。
And this is Gray! He appears! Yay! He's like, I'll disturb you, watchmaker. He's like, I'm gonna cut in for a second. And she just comments that it's Gray. Like, what are you doing here?
トカゲか。何の用だ?
And Julius refers to him by his role's name, the Lizard. He's actually an assassin slash caregiver to Nightmare, who runs basically Clover Country. And he ends up doing most of the work, like the paperwork and stuff. And also the protecting of the people in that territory that are under his care, including her and Nightmare, when she stays there. So he's like, Lizard, what are you doing here? Because this is technically an invasion of his territory. This is still the clock tower. It's just a door connects them between dimensions. So he shouldn't be in there, really.
用というほどのことはないが、ココアを持ってきた。
And he's like, I don't have much to say. I just brought cocoa. Or like a drink.
ココアだとなんでそんなものを
And he was asking about the cocoa, like, what is it? Like, why did you bring that? Because Julius doesn't drink that. He only drinks, like, coffee. But Alice comments to herself that last time it was Nightmare and me who had it, and it's delicious. She ends.
それはよかった。多めに作ったから少し残っているんだ。
He's like, it was good and I made a lot, so there's a little left.
君はここだろうと思って持ってきた。お前もよければ飲んでくれ。時計屋。
So he actually sought out Alice. He's kind of got a rivalry with Julius, you find out. They don't really explain it. It was kind of touched on, though. And then I believe it was touched on again in the Diamond games, because they're all their younger selves. But they weren't able to finish up the lore because the company went bankrupt. But one of the things that they touch on throughout like the games with Julius and Gray in there is that they kind of have a rivalry. And Julius kind of runs the clock tower in the neutral territory and Heart Country, so when Gray walked in there, it was kind of an invasion of territory, and so that's why he was really surprised that he did that. But he went in there for Alice, because he knew that she was in there. And he's like, I brought you this thinking that you would be here. And then he like offhand says, you too, tell me if you want some next time. To Julius.
どうも
And Julius is like, ... thanks. And she's like, foo-foo, I recommend it to Julius. It's very warm, thanks to this. And she was laughing. Those first two characters were like foo-foo laughter. She's like, although it may be too sweet for Julius, who is used to, like, the coffee and stuff, she's like, warm sweetness is good for the body. And she's like, somehow, it's actually colder in the room if you have these two in here. She comments on the fact that the atmosphere is really tense and chilly. She's like, it's easy to spend time with each individual, but Julius and Gray together, it's kind of chilly in here. And she trails off again. She's like, the exchange between the two was as if through a distance. Although there was some kind of courtesy that was observed, occasionally this can actually develop into an exchange of disgusting, like, words. So they have, like, this rivalry, and she's commenting on it right now. She's like, winter drinks are good because it's a little cold in the room in winter.
お前は服装が悪いんだこの気温でそんなに腕を出していれば寒いに決まっている
Julius, of course, scolds her because he's, like, in jealous mode right now. And he's like, it's because you're badly dressed. Take better care of your temperature. It's cold. She was like, I was told that, ... And she's like, I understand that you are worried, but it's not necessarily my fault. She's like, it suddenly got cold as if, like, overnight almost. Winter, it wasn't always this season. She's like, the time zone, it just changed irregularly. And she's like, ... wait a second. It was during that time, wasn't it?
ああ、その通り。君は察しがいいな。
But Gray cuts in and he's like, oh yes, you can't guess, Alice. And she's like, he read that on my face, exactly like Nightmare. Gray read my thoughts.
この期間は季節がコロコロ変わるんだ。
He's like, during this period, the seasons change around the territories.
見ての通りここは今冬になっている
So Julius responds, as you can see, this territory is now winter. And she's just like, here? Question mark? And she comments that you can actually see the snow flickering through the window. The sky is both dark and there's a heavy feeling. She's like, it's a winter scenery. ... She's just like, huh?
そう、冬だ。ナイトメア様が一番弱る季節でもある。気が重い。
So Gray actually cuts in here and he's like, yes, winter. Nightmare, this is his most weakening season. Like, this is the most heaviest season on him.
まあ、それでも他の場所よりはまだマシだ。過ごしやすすぎるとナイトメア様が脱走して仕事にならないからな。
Gray cuts in again and he's like, but it's still better than other territories, like other seasons. If you spend time too much there, like Nightmare will escape and then you won't be able to get any work done. So his concern is on the work being done. And he's worried that if it was a pleasant season, Nightmare would go around escaping from his work, even more than he already does. And she's like, from other places, ... because she's commenting on the fact that he said that winter was better.
確かに奴の行動パターンを考えるとよそなどはたまらんだろうな。お前たちの想像したを考えただけで疲れる。
Julius cuts in at this point and he's like, surely you can think about his behavior pattern, because Nightmare does this. He constantly runs away. He even ran away into like dreams and Gray had to pull him out. And that's what he was doing the entire first game. He was hiding in Alice's dream world, like whether or not she was awake. And so Julius is like, surely you could think about his past behavior pattern. And he's like, I'm sure you guys have enjoyed it. Just thinking about your noise is making me tired. Like, they're back and forth. And this is him being a little jealous right now, too, probably. Because he's like that. But she thinks to herself, certainly in this cold, Nightmare will not come out of his futon. And she's like, he's literally like a wrapped up cocooned worm. She comments to herself that she can easily imagine his appearance. Looking back, she like remembers this. She's like, in fact, when I met him only in my dreams during that first game, I have a memory that he was often wrapped in a blanket and curled up, like a cocoon.
そうなんだ。引きこもって。
And Gray's commenting on what Julius actually said, like in a snappish voice. He was just like, is that so? Well, hold back your fangs, because he was like making snide remarks, ... and trailed off. That was his comment to Julius.
ひどい時には夢から出てこない。引っ張り出すのは至難の技だ。
Gray comments that he doesn't want to come out of dreams when it's terrible, so it's a difficult task to pull him out. And she's like, anyone who can go to the dream world is fine. Once the job is done, it doesn't matter how much you go. But the key is, like, having the job done.
ああ、まったくだ。いつも途中で仕事を放り出して。
And Gray's like, oh, absolutely, I agree with you. But he always throws the job along the way. Like, he doesn't do the job along the way. And he trails off. And he just sighs. And she's like, huh? After ...
お前たち何なんだ。神気臭い。
Julius comments on the fact that when Gray came in, he was probably like carrying food, and he's notoriously known as a really bad cook, like bad enough to poison people with it. And so he comments like, what are you guys doing? And he's like, it's spicy in here, and he like trails off because he's smelling it, like what Gray brought with him.
時計屋に言われるとはな。
And after ... freaking Gray, like, comments back, he's like, what does the watchmaker say? And Alice comments to herself that, yeah, what he's carrying, it'll probably be spicy. And she comments that Julius doesn't know, but Nightmare is always being fed burned stuff. And she comments here that, yeah, Julius wouldn't know, and then trails off. Because again, she doesn't remember that he disappeared from the second game, but she, like, has recollections of the people she met in the second game. And she knows that Julius didn't meet with them during that time period. So she's like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, he wouldn't know. But then she thinks a little harder about it, and she's like, why wouldn't he know? Like, wasn't he there? And she's like, I just feel that something is wrong, ... She's like, I feel something is wrong, but I don't know what is wrong. She's like, I can't remember what's important. It's cold and it's unthinkable. She's like, I was just thinking about it. And then she comments to them, she's like, I feel like I'll need to take a walk. Like, do something with my mind, because she's getting anxious right now.
さらに疲れると思うぞ。
Julius comments here, he's like, I think you're just tired, or that'll make you more tired. Because again, they're trying to, like, make sure that she doesn't freak out. And she's like, ... She comments also that I'm worried about going around. She's like, I was told that it was different from when things had moved in the second game, but I feel like it changes the way the outside looks still. In the second game, it was a little worrisome when she would go out because things were still shifting, and so it could create, like, a dangerous situation if it shifted suddenly. But she was told that it's not exactly the same. She's like, from what I heard earlier, the situation in other places seems to have changed considerably.
まったく。本当に物好きなやつだな、お前は。
Julius makes a snide comment here. He's like, you're a real lover, you are.
行かなくても大方想像はつくだろうに。
He's like, even if you don't go there.
まあ行くなら今のうちに見て回ってくるといい。風邪をひかないよう厚着をして出かけるんだぞ。
And Gray's like, well, if you go, look around now. Go out with a thick coat. That way you don't catch a cold. And he's kind of like questioning her choice of clothing. And it's like, when we go outside, it's winter. She's like, as you can see from the view of the window, the outside is a silver world and the air is changing. She's like, winter, it's cold to the core of the body and my breath is white. She's like, cold, I've never felt like this before. So cold that she's never felt before. She comments that Wonderland was always the right temperature instead of getting too hot or cold, and the feeling of the seasons was different. She's like, seasons that do not always change and time zones that change all the time was not strange anymore. She's like, I wonder if the season will change this time, just like the time of day. Because in Wonderland, it can be night, and then it can be, like, afternoon, and then evening again. And it can be like 10 time periods before it hits morning again. And it just does this constantly all day, without any like rhyme or reason. She's gotten used to it, but the seasons were always steady, so now this is new. She's like, I feel like I'll get sick from it soon. The turn of the season that is easily lost. She's like, can I go into a world that has changed again? And it's like, where do you want to visit? And I actually chose the amusement park, because that's where you meet Mary Galland, and he disappeared. And then that's also where Pierce and Boris stay during the Joker game. And Boris stayed there during the first game, but moved to the Forest of Doors, where the circus is at during the second game. And now the circus is there, and they have all 14 role holders, so they now have more territories than they should also. And the amusement park's back, so we're going there. Boris was giving a war cry. And that's actually Pierce. He is the mouse, the Nezumi, in Wonderland, and he works for the Mad Hatters as basically like... he's kind of like their investigator. He goes in and he does the job on the people that they capture and that they need to interrogate. And then he also is the one that then hides the clocks later, and Ace is always trying to chase him down because of that, so... Sadly, Alice has seen quite a bit of his psychotic attitude when she was in the presence of Pierce during the second game. And he's commenting to Boris, who is chasing after him just like cats normally chase mice. He's like, wow, stop it, let's stop, because he's shooting him with the water gun. She comments to herself that a cat aims at a mouse. There is no competition, whether it is an expression of words or it is actually a fight there. She's like somewhere between comical and desperate. That's what this scene is. Chasing after the relationship between cats and mice. There is no sense of congruity between those who turn around and those who do not. Unless it's in a pool.
お前らこの暑いのによくやるな。暑いんだからもう少しおとなしく仲良くできないのかよ。
And Gallen's like, you don't do well in this hot weather. It's so hot, so let's be a little more quiet. Can't we just get along? She's like, a man who is away from the cat and the mouse relaxes in the shadow of his umbrella in the summer. And Mary Galland is this person, the owner of this amusement park. She's like, it's not a common name, but it does sound like a real name, compared to what other ones she's heard. Pierce is like, if you get water in the ears, you're in trouble. Or I'm in trouble. And Boris is just like, hey, why don't you run somewhere? Because I'm not going to stop. And she's commenting to herself that the cat is happily chasing the mouse, and it really looks like fun. Like moderate fun. And she's like, well, he's just pouring water, okay? He's not chasing him around with a knife and a fork like he usually does. So this is kind of peaceful. And she's like, speaking of peace... But, ... Cats and mice, weren't you not good at water? Why do you all look so happy right now? And peaceful, like, why?
Oh, あんたか。よく来たな。
And Gallen's like, oh, Alice, you're there. And they're like, Alice. And she's like, the mouse ceases to run away. waving at me, he forgets to run. And she's like, hey, Galen, don't relax in this place. Why don't you stop them? After like a ... She's like, even if he does this type of thing, he should be the landlord and not joining in with them. And Galen's like, they're just playing. They're at play, playing. He's like, it's better to just let them go because children play and grow up and then they stop. And she's like, the landlord seems to have been deported from the situation. Like he's distanced himself from it. He's like, I'm playing and I can afford to do this. And he's like, I'll play more, rats. And he goes after him. That was Boris going after Pierce. And Pierce is like, cats, I hate them. I hate them. Help, Alice. And she chides them, actually. She's like, if you don't like it, then don't swim in the same pool. It's simple psychology. I can't understand why you don't get that. She's like, if you meet, you know that you will be chased around, Pierce. Why do you dare do something that makes you guys meet face to face? She tells him further that if he really wanted to avoid this, don't come to the amusement park. And Galen cuts in. He's like, that's right. Even so, it is a communication of their kind. She's like, I wonder, ... And she comments that Pierce seems to actually be seriously scared. And she's like, hurry. And then she pauses and she's like, wait a second, is he a masochist? Like, that's literally what she asked in big letters right there. Masochist? And she comments to herself that I felt like all of the mysteries here were solved. And she's like, yes, ... She's like, from now on, let's leave this topic alone, because she's not going to touch it after she realized that. And Galen noticed that her face changed, and he's like, what happened? She's like, no, nothing happened. I just decided my future policy on things. He's like, what? He's like, that's right, you've come, so let's do a welcome song. She thinks to herself, if you take out the ukulele and just hold it, it looks good. It looks really good, but the problem is about your skill with it. She's like, I know that I already hate it when he brings out his music senses. She's like, no, it's okay. I'll just pick up my feelings and be cheerful, so don't play it. She's like, even if it's done as a favor, it's harassing. My ears and nerves will, like, cave in. She's like, the cats and mice in here would probably drown from it. It's too much. It's that much of, like, an alarm. And Galen responds, he's like, don't say that. Don't be so cold. He's like, I've been playing all the time. I think he's saying that he's been practicing. He's like, where you are, you can't listen to the music, can you? And she's like, the man cheerfully moves as he goes to apparently play. She's like, I just refuse it because I know it's more than from goodwill. Huh. She's like, no, it's fine, directly. And she's like, I still refuse everything. But she's thinking to herself, in a sense, you might also be a rare performer. Because not everybody can make your ears bleed. She's like, hey, Galland, I'm actually tired. And she comments that the place that I stayed at was not completely a peaceful place, because she just fled like Gray and Julia's having their moment. And she's like, when I came to the amusement park, I was thinking, I'll relax, right? He immediately zeroes in, like, he's like, they have trouble taking care of you? Now, all of the territories actually kind of do this, but he responds back. He's like, if you don't like it, you can always come here and stay. Tell them, and then I will always welcome you. So, like, most of the territories do this when she goes to visit. They try to get her to move there if you didn't already stay there. She's taking it as someone being caring, and that it's a weapon that you can't, like, stop getting through. And she comments, I think, that if he didn't have, like, his musical trauma-inducing ability, she's like, you're a good person. And she's like, oh, thank you for that. But please refrain. She's thinking to herself, which is better, either physically dangerous or just mentally painful. She's like, there's no comparison, but for the time being, I want to avoid the immediate danger, which would be him playing. He comments, though, about her earlier statement about it being a stressful place, like it was a tense atmosphere that she left. He's like, it's not good to stay in a place where stress builds up. And then he steamrolls over like he usually does because he just wants to play his terrible music. He's like, for the time being, now will play a song that you can really dig into. And she's like, no, quiet. He starts laughing hardcore, and he, like, repeats what she was saying, like, please refrain, ... And she's like, Galen plays with the ukulele by hand, laughing cheerfully while saying that. And she's like, now I feel more stressed here. She's like, I can't help thinking about it when I see that he starts playing. So she leaves. Or goes to leave. He's commenting that the towers are, like, basically slammed, I believe, by winter right now. Like, he knows about this. And so he's commenting on this, and he's like, the towers are doing well by you still, though? He comments that the treatment is fine, but isn't it cold? And this is kind of like where the role holders try to entice her to stay with them, because again, he's like, evacuate to the amusement park before you catch a cold. Summer is good too, right? Because she had responded to him that the treatment is fine, but it is cold, and so he had stated that right there. He was like, I always welcome you with my favorite song. That was his last statement. Now we're going to actually go to the Mad Hatter's territory next. If we try to go back to the Clover Tower before visiting every place but that, it'll actually send us another statement like it did when we tried to choose anyone but Julius at the beginning. So, we will visit my third favorite place. And Dee's like, hey boss, look at this. And Dum's like, great harvest, brother. She comments to herself that the twins talked to their boss with the taste of autumn full in their hands. They had gone harvesting. And she's like, from their innocent figure, you wouldn't know that they're called the Bloody Twins. She's like, if you get used to the appearance and approach carelessly, it's the last. And Blood's like, well, it is definitely a lot. It's all about personality, though. After that long ... pause. She's commenting on his appearance. She's like, he's a funny man with a funny hat, and that's his trademark, Blood Dupree, the head of this Hatter mansion, and the boss of the mafia in Wonderland. She's like, and the twins are members of that mafia. They're the gatekeepers. This was D talking to his brother. He's like, this is the best, brother. And they're commenting to each other, yes, brother, a lot of interesting toys have grown. And she thinks to herself that they're being pleasant twins. And he's like, Blood, he's like to them, well, it's okay to go wild in the mansion, but if you're playing, stay outside, that's fine. And she's like, the boss is looking at a mushroom that seems to be unusual. And I believe that's what the twins had handed him. Dee's like, this mushroom is great. It has an immediate effect. Where do you want to break it up in powder form, brother? Dum's like, yes, we could probably break it up at the amusement park, brother. It's there that there's a rat. So they're talking about, like, tricking Pierce and, like, bullying him and, like, trying to feed him this stuff. Because it's poison. And Dee's like, that's a good idea. Boris may be able to take a bit, but cats are more rugged than Nezumi, so mice. So it's okay. It's fine if they try to feed them both, this is what they're saying. And she comments to herself that it seems that they are making plans for excitement and play, ... And she's like, they're the only ones who can think of it as play. So Blood cuts in here and he's like, I would actually go to the castle to get rid of my boredom after that ... He's like, it seems it would kill it. And so they're like, the castle? Yes, if the boss orders, we'll go to the castle. She comments to herself, because they haven't noticed her yet, she's like, this atmosphere is getting suspicious. At least, I don't think that what the kids are talking about is good. She's like, aside from their perception on it, these sideline activities are no different from terrorism. And she's like, however, there's no sensible adult here to stop them. D cuts in and he's like, let's throw this chestnut as well. If there's good enough momentum and a decent location, you can get them to die immediately. She comments to herself that I don't like it. Like, this is bad. Like, what they're doing is bad. That's bad. So she actually cuts in and she's like, ... hello, this looks fun. Nonchalant. And he's like, older sister. And Dum's like, older sister, older sister. And Blood's like, oh, did you come by, young lady? And that's like a higher status address that he added, Ojo-san. And she was commenting about how she came there. She's like, nothing happened and I could come here without any guidance or incident, and ... It's because the two twin gatekeepers are actually here and not at their post. So she comments again that this should be a problem at a mafia's headquarters. The security, for sure. She comments again to herself that I visited an acquaintance or a friend, and when I do, I don't expect to be worried about crime prevention systems of their house. Dee's actually like my sister. Your timing is perfect. Let's hunt mushrooms together. And they're talking about poisonous mushrooms. Dum's like, mushroom, 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 singing along, and he's like, it's fun, hunting them in autumn. Exclamation point. She's thinking to herself, but ... that's a poisonous mushroom. She's like, it's a poisonous mushroom. And she's like, all of the mushrooms have a great color. She comments that the twins, their involvement is always full of danger, whether it's just a proud collection of toys that they want to show off, or if it's actually playing. She's like, there is no reason to think them not dangerous. She's like, I've already felt that danger, but I want to overlook it if I'm welcome this much. She's like, if you have a younger brother, it'll be like this. And she thinks to herself that they're cute, which is her trademark when she thinks of them. So Blood's like, maybe it's a poisonous mushroom. A mushroom is a mushroom, ... She's like, you can't have fun picking things that might be used later in, like, terrorism, basically. And she's like, I'm happy just because the twins are, basically. And she's like, I don't want to do anything later and destroy that. He's like, it's a ritual with you, Alice. And she's just like, huh? And she thinks it's a very ordinary idea to have. And Blood's like, what can I do if I get bored? This place that I live at now, it seems to be, like, resigned to this atmosphere, and it's not good to get used to boredom. So he's irritated. And then he makes a rude comment. Blood is not actually, like, my favorite. He's like, ... I wouldn't bore you. Like, basically, move here, like, stay here. I wouldn't bore you. We could have fun. And she's like, ... And then she's like, wow. Yeah, she's like, wow. And she's like, although I'm already familiar with it when I'm told this by him, who looks like a person that I used to like, because he has her ex-boyfriend's face, like the exact one. Wonderland shifted when she came, and that was one of the things that shifted. He got a face for his role, and that was like the face of her ex-boyfriend, unfortunately. She's like, so although I'm already familiar with his rude attitude and personality, when I'm told this by him, who looks like the person that I used to like, I managed to get up somehow. Because she really did want to visit there. And she's like, I know that he's not even a man. She's like, that's not to say that this isn't a bad guy. And she's like, and I must be a lonely woman to be stood up by such a man. She's like, I'm gonna go. And I believe Dee was like, boss, don't let her take off. Don't let sister take off. And I think Dumb was like, I'm not an adult anymore and I don't understand what's going on. So Blood trolls on them. He's like, foo foo foo, like, laughter. That's those first two characters. And he's like, kids are slow. Or they may be too early to understand. And she comments to herself that this guy who dresses up and says things like this does so in front of the children with them here. Like the bloody twins. And she's like, but for me, they behave like they can only be seen as nice people, so they put up a front. The only one who doesn't really is Blood. He just kind of like does whatever he wants. Now this is Elliot. He's the number 2 in the Mafia. He actually cuts in here and he's like, look, Blood, I got a load of carrots. And he's like, if you have all of this, carrot puree, carrot champagne, carrot stew, you can make all of this. We can have a carrot party. You can tell Blood's like really upset. He's got that like grayish blue line on his forehead and he's turned away from it. She's like, a rabbit came in with a big smile. She comments that this rabbit is the number 2 in the Mafia. And she's like, at least he is not an ordinary cute rabbit. And she's like, well, he is a big guy, not a normal rabbit. And she's like, however, he also has cuteness. And he can't be thought of immediately as being a quick blast, but he is. And she's like, there's also the rabbit ears. But is it his character or his nature that she likes? And she trails off. And they're like, oh, idiot rabbit. And they're like, why are you bringing carrots again? I'm eating carrots all the time.
人参なんて秋でなくても年がら年中あるじゃないか。
So
人参の食べ過ぎで頭の中にも人参が詰まっているんじゃない？
D responds back after Dumb's statement. He's like, that's right, carrots aren't in like the fall. They're not a seasonal item. They're year round, and you eat carrots too much. There's so many carrots that we eat that there's carrots in my head. And you can't get them out.
だと？お前ら人参、いやいや、人参料理をバカにしやがって。
And Elliot's like, and ... exclamation mark. You guys, carrots ... And then he's like, no, carrot food is not stupid ... exclamation mark. And she's like, oh, calm down, Elliot. Because his hand was already on his gun. And she's like, it's really a big harvest. That's amazing. Carrot has filled both of his hands for Elliot, and he's like, or she's like, I'm going to drown in them. Or he looks like he's going to drown in them. And she's thinking about like, who will eat this? She's like, he's a rabbit, but is short-minded and good for companionship. He tries to share his favorite food with everyone.
来てたんだな。あんたも食ってけよ。
And Elliot's like, oh, you came. You can eat too, Alice.
俺が人参を分けてもいいと思うのはあんたとブラッドだけって。おいブラッド、